found something. We found something. We found something.
12 men have just discovered something. For 100,000 years, it was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live. Inside. Where no one can see it, or hear it, or feel it.
I know I'm human. Some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to, but it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You guys gonna listen to Gary? He can beat one of those things!
Assault on Precinct 13, was that the first Carpenter movie you saw?
Oh, wow. I think it's kind of funny what got me into John Carpenter.
Mm.
I know, like, you know, a long ago, probably early 2000s, I was like a huge South Park fan. I kind of like not so much anymore, but I think it's still cool. I just don't watch it anymore. But for a while there, they would have these like obscure, references on the show.
Right.
And I know that they copied the fight from They Live, like, move for move in one of the episodes where the two kids are fighting each other.
Of course they did.
And I thought that was hilarious. And I was like, I had always heard about They Live, but I'd never seen it. I think that might have been the first, like, I'd seen Halloween at one point. I think I had watched They Live and I thought it was so fucking cool that I started watching other just branching out in the catalog. But
Right.
The Thing, I remember being up late. I just like rented a DVD from the library or whatever, was watching it. And yeah, when Bennings he turns toward the camera and lifts his fucked up arms up and he does that horrible screech. I mean, I was locked in on that fucking movie. Yeah. I was just like at home, like, it's not like a big theatrical experience with the movie, like completely delivered on some tiny ass TV with the DVD rented
completely.
from the library.
I mean, that's how a lot of us had to see it, right? Because it was in and out of the theaters when we were kids.
It blew
so
my
quick.
fucking mind, and then I just went Escape from New York, Escape from LA, The Fog, just one after another, and I was like, "Fuck, this guy's catalog's incredible,"
Yeah, Dan Truly said it best when he said, "Look, he's just an interesting filmmaker," and he genuinely is. It's a simplistic way to put it, but it's a great way to put it. Like, John Carpenter is interesting. Like, he takes things and makes them compelling. And like The Thing, it's so funny because I see people posting photos of that actor and like all the comments are like, "It isn't Bennings." It's just someone has to say it, right? Or a couple hundred people have to say it and think they're all so original, right? Me, one of them probably. But
hey, it's fun. Fuck it, you got to have fun.
It is fun, but that scene is that scene is so riveting.
Oh God, it's horrifying.
You forget that in their move to exterminate him, they literally like just tip a barrel of gasoline over. They could have blown up half the camp. Could have killed them all, but you don't care. I think even Carpenter cites that in the commentary. He's like, "Okay, that's not the way you should do this, kids, but whatever." We're set here, so this is where the thing. But I mean, just the idea of this movie where there's a guy like ripping off helicopter and tractor parts to build a spaceship in a
flying saucer under the ice. Yeah. It's like under the surface ice cave. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really Wilford Brimley, according to former Warner Brothers senior VP Bill Daly, one of our regulars here. He worked with Wilford quite a bit. And Wilford was like an ornery dude, but
I'm sure. I mean, that totally checks out, I think. Yeah.
He was like a former like stunt writer or something. I mean, he'd cut his teeth and he deserved his credit, but he was not always happy to be working with people. But in that movie, he delivers. He it's just and the little touch of the noose in the, you know,
In the background.
and he's like,
I
wait a
want to
minute,
come
man, wait a
inside.
minute. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, it's so funny though, because he'd already told them what he had found out in terms of theories on the thing strategy, like what it was trying to do. But their thinking is still, let's lock them in the tool shed.
Right.
And, and from there, like when they start dividing up, like they're worried, but Fuchs is working in the lab alone. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. All right, look, let's get back to everyone fall back into platoon level. Like, you're not going over there by yourself. If you need to do some research, we're going to move the
We're gonna
lab
do it
in
as
the
a
rec
group.
room.
Yeah, yeah.
Or we're moving the rec room into the lab. But no one is splitting off. And that's that great scene, too, with incredible sound design. I mean, one of the reasons I can actually fall asleep to the movie is the soundscape that it of the combination of the weather sound and the effects. And when that shadow bolts by, Fuchs, and he's like, "Who's there?" I'm like,
Oh, I always laugh at that part because I'm like, fuck, like,
"Yeah,
like who to that terrifying thing happening? Who goes, who's there? Like the way he does, it's like, come on, man.
Who's that?
actually like a simplistic setup, but so effective. Like we know when he kicks the bucket that's one of two. But
Yeah,
for some reason, the first time I saw it, like when he gets to the door, and we know the doorway's the gimmick, but we just, it's like, it still got me, and it's still fun to watch even now. And the sound they put in there, where it's like, and then of course he does the thing that would make me, hate him, which is we're not going outside after it. It's going outside to lead you into an ambush. We're not
yeah.
going out.
But
You
he lit
know,
himself on fire or whatever, or whatever he
but did
did.
he? Did he?
We'll never know. Some weird. I'm a big Seinfeld fan, and like I'll see the Thing actors popping up in different
Yeah.
places. Like I know Doc is in Back to the Future 3 on the train talking
Hmm.
to Mary Steenburgen. Is that her name?
Yeah.
But the whole thing with George the Ocean called. They're running out of shrimp or whatever. That's Fuchs. That's Fuchs. The same actor who plays Fuchs is on
Right.
Seinfeld as that character. I'm like, oh, what fuck? That's crazy.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
he's solid in it. He's I mean
he's good
every one of
everywhere.
the, yeah, those actors are all really really good. TK Carter, all those guys, brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean the whole thing from top to bottom. It's And we were talking a little bit about how maybe the reviews of that movie after a year-long pre-production and the effort that went into it clearly stuck with Carpenter. We think.
right.
And that's part of why, he can some days, he does what John Carpenter wants to do. I think he was not treated too well by the critics. And then the same critics kind of turned around and like re-reviewed their work and like,
Didn't they do that on Halloween
yeah,
also? It was like shown without music and then with music or something like that? And after they added the music in, at least the story I heard, that they
yeah.
like completely, turned right around, did like a 180 and praised how great it was.
So you can have a different outlook on a film as you get older. I've certainly had that experience. I've maybe not liked a movie, but like appreciated things about it later.
Sure. I've
Same
had that
with your
happen too.
criticism. Yeah, your criticism can also change. But I do think sometimes there's critics who criticize in tune with what they think their audience, such as it is, may think. Like they want to criticize into the popular opinion. And I think
Yeah.
with Carpenter, he was doing so many unique things that the cool thing for a lot of these people to do would be like, this movie's outrageous. This guy is like an operatic conductor of gore, and he really
Yeah.
wasn't. But
Well, they called
uh,
him the pornographer of violence for the thing, and he
so
he like
this
quoted
this
that directly. He didn't like
so
that, I don't think.
so the same people who said that probably about a bunch of guys in an Arctic research station who are torching a bunch of essentially Muppets with flamethrowers and stuff. Carpenter is a pornographer of violence for doing that. But these same critics probably loved Peckinpah and his 30-minute fucking Battle of Bloody Porch, where probably 200 guys get blown apart. Like, that's okay.
Are we
That's
talking about the
art.
Wild Bunch with that one?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that shit though. It's so good.
So on I mean, I would like to do a comparison. We should do a dedication to critics and what they loved versus what they hated and why. And again, everyone has the right to be their own critic, but I sometimes wonder about these people who are paid to do it, and they probably love the Wild Bunch and the Gatling gun cutting into hundreds of people at a time. But when it comes to the Thing, 12 guys against an alien, this is pornography. This is no,
Oh,
this is
yeah,
what
I've seen
this.
that. People have different sensibility. I think that it's kind of fashionable to kick the shit out of things sometimes. You can be kind of mean-spirited about things like that when you don't need to be. And
Yeah,
people do that for clout sometimes, and I don't like that. But
yeah.
yeah,
People do that for clout. That's a good way to put it.
there's a different kind of reaction. Like I know, like my dad can watch like the craziest, like most violent, like war movies and shit.
Yeah.
But he stays completely away from horror. So it's like I guess the context of the violence matters to some people, but I still think that that's a dumb. I think it's always a dumb thing to complain about in a film. I don't know.
Mhm.
Violence never bothers me in movies, really.
I
Never
mean,
has.
for me, it depends. It depends on the level. It depends on the level of cruelty. It depends on
Yeah.
like sort of the
Like you're not a
psychological.
Terrifier guy, right?
Not yet. I haven't
Not
seen any
yet.
of them. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
I can't
Yeah,
comment.
it's like ridiculous, like just so over the top.
Yeah. But I think what probably got some of these critics the first time around with the Thing was they were probably genuinely shocked.
Yeah, it came out the
Like,
same year as E.T. is what I've always heard. So people were like, "How could you? How could you turn in this?"
so, maybe, but I've never been comfortable blaming the failure of one movie on the success of another
Success of
around the
another.
same time.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So maybe that is the case, but I just can't identify with it. I love the way E.T. I thought E.T. We talked about. We'll get to E.T. in a second, but
There's room for both, though, right?
yeah,
Like
for sure.
logically, like
Fuck, put them in a double feature. Let's E.T. in the Thing
Oh man,
for the kindergarten kids. But
we lift you up and then we kick the shit out of you, man.
yeah. E.T. and its terrifying sequel. But I think like with that scene where they're doing like the cardiac arrest and the chest busts open, I think that probably shocked people.
Yeah,
When they saw it for the first time, and they probably walked away going, this movie's crazy." And you look at it now, and it's just one of those components. It's not really like
it's still fucking crazy though. No matter how many times I see that, I go, "Oh my god!" It is
and I
like
champion
with
it.
the cut off arm stumps,
And they hired an actor who had lost his arms in a machine accident. So
Full authenticity, man.
yeah. Hiring an actor who lost his arms in a machine accident, to me, you get a grade A for me for your hiring practices and for your surprise and strength and creativity in terms of mapping out a scene. But
Right.
we had talked about E.T. and how we thought that you were talking about the magic of John Williams and
Yeah.
and how you loved E.T. And I said what it is for all of us who grew up watching it. The BMX generation is when they cut to the bike pursuit and the music cue when those wheels are spinning is like yes. Yeah, for all of us. And then they shoot over a police car. We're like, this is the greatest. This is the
Yeah, it's awesome.
First
Yeah.
they're playing a D&D game, which I only played once in the 5th grade, but can appreciate. First they're playing a D&D game, and now they're taking their fucking Diamondbacks over a police
This
car.
is our life, man. Yeah, exactly.
Because none of us would be caught dead riding a Huffy. But so it's either Mongoose or Diamondbacks,
Right.
or Red Line. But you look at that, and then we were talking about Spielberg's decision to put walkie-talkies in the hands of the firearms and the federal marshals that are closing in. But we said that was probably real, right? They would have probably, this is an alien. They probably would have grabbed their weapons.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But the layers that that film provides on the surface, the relationship between E.T. obviously and Elliot, who you met, is one thing. But for me, what really makes the movie is both the professional approach and the mapping out of the character Peter Coyote plays, where you don't see him for 3/4 of the movie. You just see clues of him. And then his first like impression into the film is walking in that down that tunnel in that hazmat suit. And he comes in and you go, now we see our guy. And he's set up to be this very scary, like antagonist, but he turns out to be very sympathetic. Like his whole quest is trying to get to what the root of what he witnessed as a kid himself.
Right.
And he's shockingly sympathetic to the young person involved, which would not have been the general take, right? I bet there was discussions about that going into production when they were writing the script saying, what kind of villain do we have here? Is he a villain? And it's probably
that's kind of interesting. Like, it's interesting that I was just thinking while you were talking about it, I don't think there really is a villain in E.T.
No.
You know, like not a singular figure. It could be like the government who's after E.T., but it should have been that character. But he isn't. He's also, I guess, just driven by discovery.
Well, we were talking how Starman takes it a notch further. Another superior film by Carpenter, by the way, where they don't hold back on what they're like. They have the lobotomy table ready to go in that movie. But in E.T., it's set like, who are these people running down the spaceship in the beginning, and who are these people on the trail of E.T. that find their way into suburban Simi Valley and looking. So it's all, and it's done with John Williams' score of like foreboding elements.
Oh, it's a great little motif for the like, you know, the whatever they are, the FBI or whatever, you know, guys looking for E.T.
But when you finally get to the character and he's like, you know, he realizes the devastation and the sense of loss, and he's like, do you want us to let you have a few moments with him? Like that. I see that being discussed as probably the winning point in the creative bullpen when they were working on the script, where they were talking villain, level of villainy. And Spielberg probably said, what we need is a guy who comes in as the villain and does a complete 180 and allows the kid a chance to grieve. He said that will actually pull the pin on the grenade in the audience. He's like, when you see someone say, go back in and have a few moments with your friend, then all of a sudden this character becomes someone you're afraid of through the entire movie to someone you're somewhat impressed by. And even when they're like on this sort of madcap Scooby-Doo like hunt for the spaceship at the end, where they're like cruising, the guy can't drive, but he does a fantastic job. And he gets to the park and they got their bikes ready to go. See Thomas Howell, who did a movie with my old boss, John Milius,
Red
Dawn.
Red Dawn.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, they're ready to go. And they've got like he's got like his boxes on his head, and the dude's got his ninja hood and whatever it is. And they're like, now it's our turn. And now it's the Goonies' turn for a little payback. But even when they're doing all that, like the Peter Coyote character is like not out to hurt them. He's like, holy fuck, it's going down. Like he's a lot, like it's almost like he wants to get them and get to the bottom of it, but he wants to do it in all the right ways. And I think it's the one thing about E.T. I will say is I'm impressed with them not to collapse into what would have been a lot of like sort of storytelling norms. Like, let's have a clear-cut bad guy. Like that guy is very there's a gray area with that character that I think is executed
he doesn't have a
really
name
well
in the movie. I don't think either. I think it's either like the man with the keys or something like that.
Yeah, and that's a good way to do it too.
It's a very intentional thing that he doesn't have a name. I think, you know. So
we'll just call him Coyote.
Yeah,
for now.
Peter Coyote.
But Coyote's the perfect casting choice because he had that quality. You know, he was the officer in Southern Comfort too, and he was kind of like that same guy around like a real bizarre set of casting choices that were excellent, like the Fred Wards and the Powers Booths and the Keith Carradines.
Like the only other movie I can think of him in that just like immediately comes to mind is this. I think it's a Polanski movie called Bitter Moon. You ever seen that?
No, but I know about it.
It is bizarre. Like, holy shit. You couldn't get further away from the E.T. vibe, but I saw that anyway. So
Well,
It's another
Polanski's
one you don't
known.
need to see. You're good. I've taken that bullet for you. It's all good.
Thank you. I'm going to trust your opinion on it. Oh, the only reason is so little time. So little time. I've
That's
got to be
right.
sure to invest it properly. But it's funny, like just looking back at these movies, like Justin Rivera barged in at an event, like we were at rehearsals or something for a show, and he's like, "Dude, I just came from a screening of E.T. This is recently, like last year." And
Sure.
he goes, that movie still holds up.
Oh
And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
really? That's awesome. Mark Marshall was on the set of that, and he said Carlo Ribaldi, who did the ET, would like call for it, and there was an actor in the costume for some of it, and he'd be like, "Give me the midget, give me the midget," and they'd be like, Car- Carlo,
Don't
let's
don't do that, man.
let's let's help you communicate. Rambaldi did all the stuff for Dune, and he had like a notorious history with these things, and he was certainly an artist in his way. But it was like they were had to check him. Like, hey, buddy, look, let's talk about our communication now. The rumors of ET, and it's been a while since I've heard this, is that Harrison Ford makes an appearance in it, and so does Spielberg. Now, the fun fact
Let's hear
between
it.
this
Let's hear
episode
it.
and next, well, I would say so what I'd heard from some of the people who worked on it is Harrison Ford is the teacher when they're trying to do the frog dissection.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And what I heard also is Spielberg is the guy in the truck doing the surveillance.
Yeah, because
Uh,
Harrison Ford's, I guess it would have been his first wife wrote E.T., I think. Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's what I've heard from the people who worked on it. I mean, look, the movie's almost 50 years old, and memory is an interesting thing, but I'm
They
sure
had it
there's
out in IMAX. Oh God, yeah, like I think it was in 23, but they had Jaws. They re-released Jaws in IMAX
mhm.
in 3D, and they also put E.T. out in IMAX. And I took my daughter to see both of them, and we were just fucking completely blown away. But E.T. really hit because I hadn't seen it since I'd become a parent, and I think it's an even kind of a deeper movie because it so relates to like young kids and their experience, you know? So
Yeah, it's funny to me, it at times it's become fashionable to bash on Spielberg for whatever reason. And I know when people talk great directors, there's some names they feel compelled to gravitate to, and maybe do gravitate to these names in a genuine sense. John Ford, I liked a lot of his stuff. Orson Welles, me not so much. Sam Peckinpah to a degree, and Spielberg is for me definitely in the lineup. And my two examples are that first shot of the woman from underwater in Jaws matched with the chase from a horse to a Nazi convoy in Raiders of the Lost Ark, like two completely different moods executed flawlessly.
right.
It's like the action elements that he was able to put together. You're gonna ride a horse and you're gonna come here, and then you're gonna get on this truck and you're gonna fucking bash this motorcycle into a swamp.
Get dragged
Like,
by a whip in the back from the back of the truck too. That's some cool shit. Yeah.
yeah. Plus the simplicity of like we're just gonna create this vibe of like being underwater under this swimmer. Like that to me that's a level of genius that is rarely matched in our
Yeah, he's
business.
a great filmmaker. He deserves his spot as one of the greatest of all time for sure.
For
Yeah.
sure. And I don't know why people like to bash on his movies, like the
For
same
the
way they
clout,
liked.
man. Like I was saying
Maybe.
before, people just sometimes you make yourself big by, shitting on somebody bigger than you. It's a way to get famous or whatever.
Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah,
Terrible way to go
it's
about it.
despicable.
It absolutely is despicable. But I mean, both these guys also owe a great debt to people like Howard Hawks, who was as as uh, as the producer of the thing. David Foster said, was like this right wing commie hunting lunatic. um, but he said that on the show too. He said we were based at Universal, where I'm based now, and
That's so specific too. Yeah.
he goes, God, we're gonna remake the thing, and he's like, but that was a Howard Hawks film. Which, although Hawks isn't credited as the director, it's pretty obvious. I think he certainly had a hand in it. But he's like, oh my God, like I guess one of the producers on the thing was like married to Howard Hawks' daughter, and he's like, I can't. My right wing, commie crushing father-in-law would kill me if we remade it. It's something like that. He told the story. It was just really funny. And by the way, I do think Carpenter's version of The Thing, though it shouldn't be considered a remake, is way better than The Thing from Another World, which to me is a completely different movie. But I know
it's completely different. Yeah, the creature's different. It's almost, isn't it kind of story-wise, it's kind of like the story of like without being the story of the Norwegian base, it basically would be their story if you were to tell it, because they're like the first ones to find it, right? Where they cut it out of the ice and everything in the Howard Hawks one.
So in the Howard Hawks one, it's an overpopulated American base, and a bunch of some Army Air Force guys fly up to it, and they discover it.
Right. They're the ones that make the original discovery, though, is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, they make the discovery.
Yeah.
There's a journalist. I mean, have you read the book by Campbell, Who Goes There?
No, I haven't.
So,
is it cool?
So, yeah, it's very good. It's good. I like it. Now, Bill Lancaster wrote the script for The Thing, and Bill Lancaster was the son of actor Burt Lancaster. So, I'm at a legendary Christmas party like 20 years ago, hosted by Richard Johnson, who was the star of The Haunting for Robert Wise.
Cool.
And he had this like Sinatra-esque Christmas cocktail party with like the star of Herbie the Love Bug and all these like veteran guys from like the Rat Pack era who'd done these movies.
It's cool.
And Ian Buchanan was there too. So I'm at this party, right? And one of the guests is Burt Lancaster's daughter. And I brought my mom to this cocktail party too. My wife, my mom, and of course she loved it because she was like meeting a lot of interesting Hollywood types who were very polite from a generation where being polite was part of the job.
And she probably knew who a lot of them were and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's cool.
So I meet her and I go, I was a big fan of your brother's work. I loved his screenplay for The Thing and Bad News Bears because he wrote that too. And she stops me and she goes, do you know Bad News Bears is like a documentary? She goes, that is based on my father, Burt Lancaster, when he was coaching my brother's Little League team. Everything in that movie is right out of his real experiences. And now it makes sense because now you can see like the Burt Lancaster possibly doing all these things that like Buttermaker did, like Chico Bail Bonds is going to sponsor us and we're going to have a beer in the dugout, kids. Don't worry about losing. Anyway.
Hi, this is Bill Daly. Please help me find a cure for NMOSD, and with it possibly cancer. Visit the Guthrie Jackson Foundation website and donate today.